Hi, my name is Sam Russell, and I'm the author of the book How to Practice Guitar and Train Your Creativity. It's even got my name on it. And I've been a guitar teacher for about 10 years in West London and taught a couple hundred students now. And this book is all the things about practicing guitar, learning guitar, improving that aren't here's the scale shape, here's a chord. It's all the stuff on how you practice and how you approach your practice as effectively as possible to help you improve quickly. And I thought I'd have a read through the contents page so you know what's in the book and maybe you'll find it useful. So to starts off talking a bit about creativity. So what is creativity? Why do people often get confused about what it really is and what it isn't? And how is that useful to know about to us? It talks a bit about how we learn and some effective learning methods, the difference between linear and spiral learning. Getting that wrong often gets people to get caught up learning one thing far more accessibly and leaving their other skills on the guitar lacking. What else we got? The myth of talent. I don't really believe in talent, and I'll explain why and reference some other books which have looked into the topic a lot more depth than I have. A bit about how we judge our progress. So it's quite easy to look at the amount of progress we're making and say, oh, this isn't good enough, I'm not making very much progress. But I quite often find when students do that, that actually they're making the normal amount of progress. Now, if you're making a normal amount of progress, but you feel like you're making not as much as you should be, you're going to feel really bad about your guitar playing and you're not going to practice as much. But if you look at your progress and you judge it more accurately, or you find a more accurate way to judge or measure it, you'll feel better about it, you're going to practice more. So that's quite a good thing to know. Then talk a bit about muscle memory, how that works, how you can train it more effectively so you can increase the rate at which your muscle memory develops. Again, beginners often get that quite wrong as well. Basically, it comes down to doing things exactly the same way every single time. So if when you play a scale, for example, you're using different fingers every time you play it, your muscle memory is going to take a very long time to develop. If you play a scale and you use the exact same fingers the exact same way every single time, your muscle memory is going to develop a lot quicker. So I'll break down how that works, and there's some examples of that in that section. I'll talk a little bit about why people quit learning guitar. So it's kind of sad, but there's some statistic that says something like 3/4 of people quit playing guitar within a couple of weeks. And quite often it's because they're, like I mentioned before, progressing at the normal amount that somebody does, that everyone does when they learn guitar, but because they feel like they're not learning very quickly or not learning quick enough compared to some completely arbitrary standard they've invented, they feel bad and they quit. Talk about how much you should practice, how to make your practice time as effective as possible, quite useful. Using a metronome, how to use a metronome effectively. I think I have 10 different tips or basically rules to follow for using a metronome. I find that most people, if they're using a metronome, use one or two of these, and using all of them is going to very quickly speed up how you progress. Hope you're using a metronome anyway. Talk about some problem solving strategies. So I'm sure you've got stuck with something with your guitar playing, you're not quite sure how to solve it or how to fix it, so I'll talk about some ways you can approach solving and fixing things you find difficult. Chord changes, there's this little section there on how you can speed up your chord changes. There's 4 or 5 techniques that are quite effective for getting your chord changes a lot quicker. Everyone struggles with that at some point. Whenever I learn a new chord I get stuck with, I'm going straight to one of these techniques or all of them, and they always work. I use them on my students all the time as well. They're super effective. Set your practice, what you're practicing for. That's quite a fun little section. So it's quite easy to get caught up with what you're practicing and to stop thinking about what it is you're practicing for. And if you think about what it is you're practicing for, you might find there's a slightly more effective way to practice in the first place. How to practice without a guitar, a couple of fun little ideas in there, and how to deal with bad practice days. We all get them from time to time, and having a good way to handle them so you can still make a bit of progress and not drive yourself completely insane in the process is quite effective. Then there's a section on studying. So some problems take a long time to solve. I think it's one of my favourite little sections actually. I quite often find when I teach music theory, for example, give students a theory question and they can't answer it within about 3 seconds, they just give up and they think that they can't answer it. If I say to them, okay, you've got 3 minutes to come up with some answers here, they get the answer. So sometimes we can solve a problem or we can figure something out, we just need to give ourselves a little bit of extra time to figure it out. And there's a whole section there on different ways you can learn from guitar, different sources you can use, how to learn songs effectively, tips for studying. So this is more applicable to kind of the music theory side of learning guitar. And the fastest way to learn as well. There's a little section on equipment, so guitar tone, what affects your tone, your guitar and your home studio setup. So don't go super into a lot of depth in that, but having good guitar tone is nice, and I find it more inspiring to practice when my guitar sounds awesome than when it sucks. A little section there on setting up your environment to help you practice more effectively, stay focused, and using your computer, software and DAW to practice effectively as well. Then we've got a little bit about completing projects, so how to choose a musical direction, how to decide what it is you want to work on, dealing with ideas, recording tips, little sections like that. And then I wrap up with a section on creativity. So how can you train creativity? How can you practice being creative? How can you use some techniques to be more creative? A lot of times people think that creativity is this kind of flash in the pan sort of thing that comes out of nowhere, but it's not. You can almost look at it as a lot of trial and error. I like to think of it as trial and error with music theory ideas. That's a topic I explore there. So even if you feel like you're not a very creative person, by the end of that section you can have some ideas on how you can try being more creative. And there's a couple of ideas there, ending the book with some of my favourite tips for making more progress. But I think my favourite one is to spend the first couple of hours of your day doing guitar practice. So rather than doing it in the evening when you come home from school or after work and you're really tired and your brain's all unfocused, and let's face it, at the end of the day, I just want to watch TV. I don't want to sit down and do something incredibly difficult for my brain. But first thing in the morning, brain's fresh, brain's ready to go, I've got some focus, got some energy. Yeah, sit down and do your practice then. You're going to find it 10 times more effective. Anyway, there's an appendix with just a bunch of references for some stuff. So books I like, how to set up a metronome properly, how to hold your guitar, sample libraries, sound libraries. So yeah, that's my book. Like 211 pages. You can see it's an actual book, not just a little 7-page PDF thing. It's available as a printed paperback you can get in the post, or as a PDF and EPUB file you can download, or an audio book. I hope you find it useful. There's a link in the description.